Welcome on in, folks. Wow. Ethan Klein debating Sam Sedar. We're watching from Hasanabi's perspective.
So we ruined Steven Crowder's life together. Nice to see you again.
I've been feeling very badly for him.
Yes,
over the years.
It's a tragic loss of a great career and so much potential.
Yes, it is. Hey, are we live now?
We are live on the H3 channel, yes.
I want to just start by sort of apologizing in that I sent you a DM on Twitter 6 months ago or something. I was just going through to find out, and then I just realized you're no longer on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that
He
explains why
Is on go in his chat? What do you mean?
He may no. Yeah, I didn't see it. I wish I would have, but honestly, what
do you mean?
I don't know what to do because like I want to get off Twitter, but also it's kind of a pain because Twitter is the way that like I would reach out and speak to most people. But I also don't want to be on a platform that's like owned and perpetuates basically like Nazi.
Why would you go in his chat?
Bro is saying how recommending Sam Hyde as one of his formative influences.
Yeah, this was.
I thought Ethan and Hassan were friends. No, you didn't.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah,
but I just wanted you to know I did reach out, and it was on me not to realize that. I just assumed he didn't want to respond, but.
Okay, well, that's nice to know that you reached out. I appreciate that. And the reason, I mean, obviously, people have been pushing for this conversation. I don't know if you know, like, the whole lore of it, the background of it. I
mean, this is all I know is that Hassan reached out to me sometime. I mean, I got in touch with you October 24th, and I said that I was meaning to reach out for a couple of weeks. So I assume it was sometime in early October, and my thought we were just going to do this off air, but
that's what I wanted.
My
understanding
is that you and he were getting into it, and you felt like because he wasn't Jewish, he didn't have a perspective on this, and that's why he suggested that you speak to me. I don't speak for all Jews, just to be clear.
Right.
I speak only for myself as in any form.
Well,
whatsoever.
Sam, allow me to speak for all Jews, if I may, today.
Please.
No, actually, I mean that's a total mischaracterization, which is kind of my problem with Hassan, which we can get into if you want. We don't even have to talk about Hassan, but basically, what I told him was that I was citing polling data that shows that about 70 to 80% of diaspora Jews have some kind of positive feelings towards the state of Israel.
He's going to be like, that's faulty data, it's bullshit.
And, I mean, this is available by polls, readily available by Pew Research just last month, showing that, and I have, I don't know if you're quite, if you agree with that or not, I can pull it up.
American Jews saying Israel's important to them. Israel's important to me, but that doesn't mean that I like Israel.
At least positive feelings about the state of Israel. I was stating that fact to him, and he was saying that I was wrong.
That is just a question answered by diaspora Jews about whether Israel is important to them or not. That doesn't mean that they're Zionists. Israel's important to me in my life as well.
That's not what I took him to say, but yeah, I mean, Hassan is that's irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I haven't seen that poll. I've seen ones that have said that they have a connection. They feel a connection, either strong or somewhat, which is different than positive per se.
So
but regardless, I mean, I think if I don't know your upbringing at all, but I mean certainly my upbringing, my Hebrew education was, I would say, 1/3 Holocaust, and I'm older, and so this was in the 70s, 1/3 into the 80s, 1/3 Holocaust, 1/3 Israel, 1/3 Hebrew, Hebrew and Jewish culture, and I certainly feel a strong connection to Israel, but I wouldn't call it positive these days.
Sure. I guess like, I think what the poll attempts to, basically, if you ask Hassan or a lot of people on the left. I think an emotional attachment is the way to describe this. So it's like if you think
I certainly have an emotional attachment, and it's not. But it's not. I wouldn't describe it as positive.
This isn't the one, is it, Dan? There's one that shows 73%.
Dude, he's saying just because you have an attachment to Israel doesn't mean
anyway,
that
it doesn't really matter
Zionist.
regardless. Basically, I want to flesh out my ideas, my thoughts, because I'm being characterized by Hassan and a lot of his cohorts as being, a Zionist, being pro-Israel.
You are a Zionist. You are pro-Israel. And your entire goal is to get us deplatformed and probably criminally prosecuted if you had your way.
Being a Israel apologist, being a genocide supporter, being a baby killer, being married to a baby killer, et cetera, right? My wife is Israeli. I don't know if you know that.
Your wife and you openly discussed how she left back behind the wire in Israel proper support role during her conscription, which nobody reasonable would attack her for being an 18-year-old who got drafted to be a secretary. Okay, nobody who's sane would attach any moral opprobrium to that. She didn't know what the fuck was going on. What they do attach moral opprobrium to is her leaving that because she was bored so she could join the occupation forces in the West Bank, and she, calling a Palestinian city a terror city, and watching, the trampling of the physical rights of Palestinians for settlers.
So basically, I would like to just take the opportunity to explain my ideas, what I think about Israel, and you can tell me what you think, because apparently I will only listen to other Jewish people.
You have literally, by the way, another thing that Ethan Klein has said is that he doesn't believe that Palestinians should be given equal rights.
People. So finally, I can speak to someone whose opinion matters.
I'm going to debate Ethan.
So thank you. As the official sanctioned Jewish man, Sam Sedar, everybody.
No one said that.
100% Ashkenazi.
That is also a mischaracterization.
By the way, that's so anti-Semitic. By the way, that's such an anti-Semitic, fucking disgusting bullshit fucking thing to do.
I haven't
lived experience,
but I'm quite sure I have some Sephardic Jewish ancestry too. So I would mix.
That's good.
Vilnius and Hungary, I think.
Good for you. I think that's always a good thing. My friend, I'm 99.3%. So that's my. That's where my authority comes from.
I'll take your word for it.
So at any rate, let me start here
man, he's got his blood quanta down to the decimal point. That's a very normal thing, by the way.
Showing you a little context.
Oh, let me also just say, I got about an hour.
Okay, great. I'll just get into it then. Here it is.
Not enough. That's not enough time, Uncle.
Okay, whatever. So let's start here. Let's start with the little icebreaker here. I know we're both fans of Tim Pool. Okay, let's just enjoy this image together. Tim Pool recently had a wedding.
Wait, what?
And can you see? Can you see that?
Did he get married?
Well, I think he's attending a wedding.
Okay.
And he's very formally dressed, except he appears to be wearing a beanie.
I would. I'm aware of his beanie attachment.
Bro!
So I don't know.
Why are you filibustering the conversation?
Fine look for our good friend Tim Pool there. Very good.
Nice suit.
Yeah. So well, let me ask you this: what have you kind of heard about me? Because I mean, I know that your colleagues have an opinion.
I got to be honest with you. I have not heard much. I have the only thing I really saw that came up in any of my mentions on Blue Sky. I'm also on Blue Sky. Is just this issue about talking to me, and I had presumed that was it, but I don't, look, from my perspective, I'm not, and I know that there's been, you mentioned in the email that there's been a lot of grief that you have taken, and I know that other people have also taken grief on all sides of this.
This is where I'm super, like, this is where I feel like I might actually be autistic. I don't know if it's like autism or I just like I don't understand the point of these fucking these preambles where it's like, oh, you've been a poor victim. It's like, can we get to the fucking point?
And you know, the personal aspects of this, and you know, I don't believe that people, I don't actively attempt to deplatform people. I don't think people should do that. I don't think people should be swatted.
This is not going well.
Try to be fired or whatever, or you know, have CPS sicked on them or any of that. I mean, I just don't think that's appropriate.
Hey, by the way, I get it now. Okay, well, Sam Sedar just explained it. He wanted to pre-butt a lot of the whining. Okay, now I get it. Okay, this makes perfect sense. He was pre-butting the whining that they're going to do about CPS and saying, I don't support that. And neither does Mike from PA, or neither does Hassan, and neither does Denims. None of us have argued to call CPS on you wrongfully.
I mean, I'm more interested in talking about my relationship to Zionism and my perspective on what Israel is doing, and you know, what is happening in Gaza. And
I totally agree. Let's just talk about the facts. Let me start by showing you this clip. So I've been actually talking about my feelings on the Israel, Gaza, Palestinian dispute
He's going to present
situation
himself
for
as like
a long time. I lived in Israel for 5 years as well when I was
knowing
with my
full well
wife
that
early
Sam
on.
doesn't know the full scope
Here's my
of his
position right after October 7th, and you can tell me if you have any. You know, they're if you have any comments on any of my positions here, but this was posted on. This was from our episode a few days after October 7th. He's going to
showcase himself as like, you know, pro-Palestinian unconditionally.
Liars and bad faith weirdos. So here's what I'll say about Israel, okay? Listen, this isn't the first time I've said it, and I'll say it many more times. The cabinet is run by genocidal maniacs, okay? They're led by Netanyahu, who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal. Okay, he's made a coalition of the most like radically conservative freaks that don't represent, by the way, the majority of Israelis, and they're hellbent on genocide, frankly, overtly. They've committed tons of war crimes in Gaza, including the killing of children, obviously, because Gaza is one of the most densely populated places in the world.
I wonder what this background is.
50% of the residents are under 18, so when you bomb a building,
I wonder
the chances that
I wonder what the background of this show is that he's on, where he's saying these things.
Okay, it's fucking barbaric.
By the way, notice they have to go back to leftovers for him to show him saying anything that is actually pro-Palestinian.
Unacceptable. It's disgusting.
What is Chad saying?
I've seen videos. You know.
His pediatrician is legally required to call CPS because Giardia in California. Somebody said that in Rebel's chat earlier, talking on the same subject. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, so I can't verify that. I know that's an idea that chatters have. I've never actually seen the proof.
You know, I saw videos of Palestinian dads holding his dead like 5-year-old daughter.
I was there for this conversation. I know all of this.
I don't need to watch this part because it just gets a little too emotional.
This is precisely the reason
that was my take right after.
This is precisely the reason why I literally thought Ethan was with the cause for the longest time.
Like, kind of, I'm an Israeli citizen. The morning of October 7th, me and my wife were up at 3 a.m. as families were calling into news stations from their safe houses, people being burned alive with their families, being murdered while on the phone with news. So coming off of that emotional,
he's so brave. Thank you, Ethan, for saying Palestinians are humans and Israel is doing a genocide even after October 7th.
My reaction. Now, I don't know if there's something Zionist or pro-Israel I said there, but maybe I don't understand.
I mean, I think much of what you said was true. I'm not sure, frankly, if what we've seen Israel do in terms of Gaza is not broadly supported in Israel. I'm not seeing the body politic. I mean, I was doing a lot of interviews with Israeli reporters earlier in 2023 about the protests against what Netanyahu was doing with the judiciary. And there was a question as to whether
Israelis
would.
He's going to say Sam agrees with me, and he hates you because you're anti-Semitic. That's like his goal here, is to be like, why have you called me a Zionist when Sam believes that I'm not?
Places like the West Bank and in Gaza in some fashion, and more so the West Bank at that time. And so I think it's hard to make an argument. And look, I would make it's not a perfect analogy as to what's happening in this country, but when you talk about the Israeli population not having a problem with what's going on in Gaza, I don't see a lot of evidence of that. There's certainly, I would imagine, a percentage of Israelis, and I know some of them who think that Israel should stop its assault there, but I don't think I don't see a lot of evidence that a year and a half later,
he's done so much more Hasbro since then, so it's like disingenuous for him to present that.
This is not the character of the vast majority of Israeli society. I mean, I'm not necessarily convinced that they are as aware. I mean, I've talked to people who have reported in the West Bank, and they said they would go from the West Bank into Israel, and the lack of awareness of what was happening in the West Bank by Israelis was shocking to them. So, I can't say if the Israeli population had a full understanding of what was happening in Gaza, that they wouldn't change their mind. But I don't see a lot of evidence of it.
So as you touched on, this was made basically before the war started. And I think that the unfortunate, really tragic outcome of the war.
The war. Guys, is it a war when you just genocide a civilian population and you demolish every hospital and every standing building and you destroy cities down to their foundations?
Is how much it's jaded
it's not a war, it's
and
a
radicalized. I think people in Israel.
It's not just Benjamin Netanyahu.
It's really,
it's Zionism.
I think people in Israel feel like isolated. They feel like, I mean, the sentiment in Israel is basically that the world wants, the country to disappear, and and obviously, like that's a much more nuanced conversation. But the feeling there has definitely radicalized a lot since the war started. It's gotten a lot worse.
Not a war, it's a genocide.
And I think, I think that gets to it to some extent. I mean, you have this wholesale slaughter. I was looking up, we killed in Iraq, depending on what numbers you want to look at, but I think it's safe to say directly hundreds of thousands of people. But even like the number of children that we killed in Iraq, I think has been surpassed by what's happened in Gaza. And I think one of the things that I find shocking is that the sense and look, I experienced this with family members. Where the sense that there's a victimization, for instance, let's say on college campus of Jewish students, and I think that to look at what's going on, the totality of what's going on, and to perceive the victims of what's happening here to be the Israeli citizenry or Jews in this country, I think it just blows my mind. I mean,
two people can care about two things at once. Why should people?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
People who are uninvolved in the war, if they're being victimized in a separate situation because of their Jewish identity, that's a problem, don't you think?
Oh, I do, but
and you can care about.
Do you think we should have completely raised the South during the Civil War? No, I do think they should have executed the entire planter class, though.
about two things. You can't be like, oh, these people are ridiculous for caring about anti-Semitism on college campuses because the war's happening. I mean, both we can care about two things.
100%.
And obviously one is way worse, right? One is way worse.
But that's the point. I mean, one is way worse than what's happening in Gaza.
Who should tolerate being discriminated against based on their identity? You know what I mean? Like, of course, who wouldn't react to that?
I don't think that people are. I don't think that people are being victimized. I mean, certainly, listen, anti-Semitism is real. It was real when I was a kid. There was many times I had pennies thrown at me growing up and playing basketball. I mean, there was a lot of. I've experienced anti-Semitism, but put it in the context of
which I agree with. I've
you're a
said
parent, I'm a parent.
Well.
If my kid is going through something very difficult, it's obviously difficult for me, but it's more difficult for them. And it's a question of prioritizing these things. You can have two thoughts in your head at the same time, but to center oneself or to perceive that one's victimization is sufficient to ignore the
I gotta stop you because I don't think I don't know who's doing that.
Well, I mean, I just said you just presented as the Israeli population feels like they're isolated and this and that.
There's two different separate conversations. There's like the American Jewry who's like, I have nothing to do with that place, and then the Israelis, right? So like when you're talking about,
in terms of the way that you characterized the Israeli feeling, was that they feel isolated, et cetera, and I can understand that, but to not have the first thought of like, we are
Sam will not let Ethan talk.
Committing, like you say, genocidal acts. And if people want to call it genocide, I don't, obviously it's got to be, it's a legal term, but I think that it's colloquially speaking, at the very least, it is a genocide. And to not recognize that as the fundamental issue, the first issue, I think is blinkered. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, it's a little gobsmacking to me.
Well, so I do agree with you that obviously in Israel, people, I think the problem, and just to say on a higher level, I agree with you. Like obviously the people in Israel compared to like what's on October 7th, they were victims.
Point that Ethan is being narcissistic
everything that's happened,
for centering himself in this conversation about how he's been victimized as though he's the biggest victim of this entire fucking genocide
of civilians in Gaza and what's happening in the West Bank too. Lots of awful stuff. That being said, I think the problem with
trying to
Israel, just to try to explain what's happening there, because I do agree with you, is just like the media apparatus and the feeling that they have there. It's like there's not a lot of space emotionally and like even the information that they're consuming, I think, that would allow them to have that kind of like self-realization. And like you said, a lot of Israelis don't know what's happening
there are some. I mean,
there are some.
I'm so sorry. They're just simply little old, most powerful country in the region and its citizenry that's championing this fucking
what was going on there
of children.
And the paper was essentially, a cutout, or there was an attempt by the government to basically shut them down.
He moved on from him being the victim to some extent. Israelis being the victims.
Well, so what's your explanation why Israelis don't care? It's not that they're evil, right?
Well, I think
the Israeli society is a settler colonial society. I think they have a far-right fascist politic that is perfectly comfortable with killing Palestinians. They have created it's basically illegal to counter this argument, and I think they're in a genocidal mania. Now, whether you call that evil or not is up to you. I mean, but here are the simple facts. Like, only 4% of Jewish Israelis disapprove of the IDF response. 81% think civilian suffering should not affect IDF decision-making. And 70% think it should be illegal to even express sympathy for civilians. Israeli Arabs are much more critical of the military response, with 74% saying it has gone too far. Only 4% of Israeli Jews agree. Walls is fired. Yes, I know.
I'm sure that there is a mass, sort of like a failure to deal with trauma. I think some of it is, frankly, is racism. I think, how can you explain, how can I explain how I just watched a clip of people at a Trump rally chanting USA, USA, to watching a video of people being, taken into that prison in El Salvador and having their heads I mean, I don't know how I can explain that. Home. So I don't know how I could explain how the Israelis are able to the extent that they can see what's going on in Gaza, have that reaction. But I know that it's wrong. Off. And I think, some of it undoubtedly is a racism. Some of it is,
Sam is
maybe some type of mass failure to deal with trauma. I mean, I don't know all those things. I think, part of it, I think there's some of the makeup of, immigrants to Israel over the past several decades. I'm sure all of that enters into it.
We had this conversation before.
I'm not in a position to sort of like be able to psychoanalyze it beyond this sort of vague notions.
Sure.
But
and I
from
agree.
my perspective, it's gobsmacking, and to me, it has shown, and I never
very well
identified myself as a Zionist as a kid, or through the years, and I never identified myself as an anti-Zionist. I don't think I think it wasn't really until someone heard me articulate my perspective on this that they referred to me as anti-Zionist, and I don't really care that one way or another how I'm labeled, but to me it shows a failure of that system of government that Israel has.
It's Zionism. That is the problem.
It has failed both.
And Ethan will never reconcile that.
What I think some people had as a notion of Zionism in the
Hannah Arendt.
19th century.
Hannah Arendt.
It has been a failure in terms of keeping Jews safe, frankly. It seems to have been a massive failure. And so I can't operate as someone who lives in Israel, but I can operate as someone who is an American in terms of like what we support, which is why I think we should end all aid. And as a Jew who sees my religion being used as what I perceive as a fig leaf for what Israelis or Zionists are doing, and so. That's where I'm coming from. This is really important.
This conversation is great to have. I'm so glad he did this. I'm so glad Ethan did this.
If there is a psychological state that can justify this.
Oh, no, they're too stupid to understand it, though.
I don't think there is. And so,
it's just an attempt to understand, not justify. Because, it is what it is, right? Like, it is the way that it is. And so that's for a reason. And it's just, it's just trying to explain it. That's all. I agree with everything you're saying. But actually, one thing I want to pivot to and ask you about.
Do you think that we should cut all aid to Israel?
I think that'd be justifiable, yeah.
And
we're talking about like military and stuff. Yeah, for sure. Israel can make their own bombs and shit.
Every
if they need, like, they don't need American military.
Yes,
yeah, I agree with you on that.
Well, I think they do need it to do what they're doing.
Okay. Like this is by the way, this is a perfect example of why Ethan Klein is a Zionist, because this is delusional. All right. Israel doesn't need American aid, but protesting American aid makes you an anti-Semite, huh?
Without a doubt.
They do.
And,
well, what I mean is they're not entitled to it, to say more accurately. Yeah. So yeah, I think military aid should be cut for sure until.
Yeah, I think military. This is the doctrine of surrender, by the way, Chad. This is a pathetic move, but you should be aware of it. It's an advanced move. It's called the doctrine of surrender. So basically what you do is you stipulate things that are fatal to your position, but then you very quickly move on. Right? Like this is like if you're in a losing position in a conversation or argument, and this is a really good trick if you're trying to gaslight your partner. if you have something that you look really bad on and you're just wrong, right? And it's fatal to your position. One of the things you could do is just very quickly agree to it and then move the conversation on.
How as a Jew, and you know,
I just made a large May Day donation to Strike for Our Rights base.
Obviously, you have a different connection to Israel than I do, as you know, through your family and whatnot, and through having lived there. But as a Jew,
Ethan W. They're so desperate for Ethan to come across as even remotely
to what is being done, ostensibly to protect me and my family and my ancestors and my progeny and all of it. It is. I mean, I think it's. I think the conflation of Zionism and Judaism is both not keeping Jews safe and is wrong at its core. And we can see what it's even doing in the context of this country, the way that it's enabled Trump to attack universities and to attack law firms and whatever. And so I don't know.
By the way, I think Ethan is in agreement with Sam here. He's walking back a lot of his positions, but I don't think Gila is in agreement with Sam
I agree with everything you're saying. And part of the reason why like this chasm started between me and, you know, Hassan is very influential. So when he decides that somebody is an enemy of the movement for criticizing him, which is what I perceive happened, then it kind of have stopped the war and been like a perfect dove. I don't know, but I know she would have been better than Trump. I know that for sure. Trump's posting like this insane Riviera, Gaza, the Riviera with Trump hotels. I mean, that's and like he's sending the 20-pound bombs. He's telling Netanyahu, you have a blank check, do whatever you want.
They're watching me as well.
Like
it just came out that Biden didn't, did nothing to. I mean, listen, I think.
Well, I'm talking about Kamala.
I suspect that
we don't know. We don't know what Kamala would have done.
I suspect.
Like, sure, it would be marginally better, but we don't know.
She would not have had the same policies as Trump. But at the same time, I think that it was a massive failure, both on a real human level. Like it would have, I think, had she articulated anything even remotely close to what I would hope
and that was her failure. That's the reason why she lost. That was my point.
Had implications in the election, but I think
from Biden's
perhaps even more importantly,
genocidal Gaza policy,
it would have maybe
not removing herself, not severing her ties from Biden early on. That was my major point of contention with the Kamala Harris campaign, and that's what led her to lose.
I chose to support Harris because I perceived her as the lesser of two evils, but.
Yeah, me too. And I think that that's an important distinction to make at a time like this. Yeah.
I can certainly understand how some people were just so repulsed by what was happening that it made it almost impossible for them to vote for Harris. I think, you know,
I understand why they didn't. I totally understand the perspective. Like, I'm so disillusioned with this administration, I can't support Kamala. But at the same time,
some of your audience or Hassan's audience may use hyperbolic or joking language, whereas Ethan and Destiny's crowd actually say it. Destiny, they literally say it. That's quoted directly from him.
I'm like a hugely influential political streamer like Hassan.
I never told people not to vote for Kamala.
On people,
I did. I said not to vote for Kamala because of the genocide, and I stand by it.
And who's someone who
not to vote for Kamala Harris. That is a lie.
Who's very vocal about being pro-Palestine. I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to be like, I'm not voting for Kamala, or I'm not telling you who I voted for. I suspect he voted for Jill Stein personally.
I hate Jill Stein.
But either way, he hasn't said, and he wouldn't endorse her.
He literally doesn't even know who the third party that we voted for PSL. Oh, I mean, I did. I don't know. Maybe Hassan voted for Kamala Harris. But like, it is what it is.
Now, like, if you're just like a random protester or whatever, and like you're like, I'm so disgusted, I don't want to vote, that's fine. But if you're like a high-level political streamer, and you know, basically, you have the capacity to weigh like the lesser.
This doesn't even. This is the dumbest shit possible. Either voting for Kamala Harris is morally demanded or not. It's not okay for people like, you know, going like, oh, Arabs who didn't want to vote for Kamala because of the genocide, I understand, or Muslims. But if you're not Arab or Muslim, you should have to vote for Kamala is nonsense. I'm going to show solidarity with the oppressed.
Two evils, but I think, you know, and certainly, you know, in the run up to the 2016 election, I certainly, that was my perspective. But again, you know,
I don't know why he lies about this.
What the Biden administration was doing was so horrific that her inability.
Yes, of course, he's using Sam to try and trash talk me by fucking lying.
The Wiz Liz says, my wife's take on this conversation yesterday. How can someone like Ethan hyperfixate on language choice of Hassan when he literally has a button for how frequently he says he does shit? Because he's lying. Okay. Ethan Klein is a Zionist and he wants to destroy pro-Palestinian creators. And he wants to create a condition where being pro-Palestine is so dangerous for your career that nobody wants to risk it.
You know, I think
I literally have made
sometimes you have to take this at face value.
Videos
I think there would be certainly definitely other things. You would not be assaulting the government.
Why does he lie about
like
this?
Trump
it's such a basic, easy to fucking comprehend principle.
You know, I think probably this is the first election in, you know, in as long as I've been doing this, and I think it's been 5 elections now. I mean, I'm old.
Why does he lie about this?
Really,
I voted on stream.
Condemn someone from taking that
I never
position
told people to vote for Jill Stein. I told people not to vote for Jill Stein. I told people
not just some random person. I do, and I'll tell you why.
Be worse than Kamala Harris
wanted a ceasefire. She stated that. Trump said finish them. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh
like for someone like Hassan,
I want a ceasefire.
I'm not voting for Biden. I'm not talking about Biden.
No, I understand, but we found out that Biden, in fact, did nothing to bring that about. So,
well,
like, you know,
you can talk about Biden. I'm talking about Kamala Harris. What she said.
I mean,
well, she's the vice president. I mean, at the end of the day, she doesn't really do that much, right?
No. But I'm talking about the candidate. Biden, as a president said he wanted a ceasefire. She as a candidate said, I want a ceasefire.
But if you're like, I don't know how much I trust them.
He is not knowledgeable enough to have an adult conversation on this. I'm sorry. It's obvious.
Well, listen, I think it was certainly obvious to me that Trump was going to be worse. But I think, like,
I mean, so in case you want to know what the strategy was, okay, so like a lot of people watch this and they're kind of bewildered. I want you to understand that this is a strategy probably hatched by Destiny because it's sociopathic. And I don't think Ethan Klein is smart enough to do a sociopathic strategy. So basically the strategy here is to attempt to divide Sam Sedar away from Hassan by thinking that Sam Sedar's stupid. And so Ethan Klein would come in here and basically say, I have the same positions as you, Sam, and yet they're attacking me for being Jewish. And then try to get Sam Sedar to be like condemning Hassan for clips.
If you're trying to get the candidate to
I'm doing a pee break.
Show some indication of this, you know, I can understand that. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I would disagree with it. But
yeah, and I get your point too. Like, ultimately, I understand why people wouldn't want to support them because of what they've seen, and like that, it feels like, you know, it feels like
it also shows a tremendous amount of just like electoral malfeasance on her part. I mean, they made an active choice. And I think, you know, you could have put that Palestinian lawmaker from Georgia on stage. They made an active choice to signal to whomever they were signaling that they weren't going to do anything. Now, I happen to believe that she would have been better on this than Trump.
Whenever I wear my headset,
they were making an active choice to do that. I mean, it was really electoral malfeasance on her part, in my opinion. But you know, I don't know what the point of litigating this is per se. But
well, we're talking about kind of my criticisms of Hassan and how this. I'm sorry. Well, let me show you this.
I don't really care.
Yeah,
about,
I know.
Honestly, I'm like
Let me show you this. This is more.
I honestly. Like,
yeah, you don't care. I know.
I don't care. I don't.
And why should you? I don't blame you. We talked about anti-Semitism, and you think that I don't want to put words in your mouth, right? But you seem to have conveyed that, you know, compared to the destruction and everything happening, the genocide, the loss of life in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, that obviously that's way more important. So let me show you an example of something. And again, I know you don't care about the drama. To me, this isn't drama. This is one of the biggest, most influential streamers. spreading.
Which he wants to, by the way, Ethan Klein wants to deplatform.
Something that I think is really dangerous. And you can agree or disagree, but it's a short clip, but I'll show it to you. And you tell me what you think.
It's clip chimped. This will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting. Yep. If they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm so serious about this.
Now, by the way, he didn't misspeak. He doubled down on it yesterday. He said, no, I agree. That's what I think. Now, just to recap, he says, anyone that's had positive feelings at any point about the state of Israel is a neo-Nazi that's not fit to be a dog walker. Now, to me, that seems like extremely dangerous, dehumanizing language about what could arguably be 70% of the Jewish diaspora, and certainly probably people you know in your family.
I'll tell you, there's some hyperbole there, but
that's putting it mildly.
I don't want my fucking Zionist family members to be in office either.
And I'll tell you what I think is really...
Sorry, I got to correct you. He says Zionism, and then he says, if you had positive feelings about the state of Israel at any point in your life.
I got to tell you, if you look at what's happening right now, and you have positive feelings...
By the way, it's dog catcher, which is oftentimes an elected. It's common speech in politics, which Ethan Klein doesn't follow politics or care about politics in any way. But there is sometimes elected dog catchers in America. A couple of weeks ago, NPR's Weekend Edition told you about America's only elected dog catcher, Zeb Town, because most places have done reforms to have professional animal control. The dog catcher used to be an elected position that people would have. Like, it's not that complicated.
Feelings about Israel.
He said at any point in your life, Sam. Just to be clear, about what he said.
Don't try to fucking.
Would I have said at any point in his life, someone's life? But I just think this is such a petty, like the idea that we're going to police. So hold on, let me respond. You want me to respond to this?
No,
like I say, I don't care about this, but if you're going to force me to respond to it, what Israel is doing right now is so far beyond the idea that someone says any time in your life or not or whatnot. He's talking about Zionism, and frankly, I think it's very difficult for me.
Maybe Sam needs more context to see how vitriolic Hassan is.
Understand how someone could have positive feelings at this time. Now, you want to say in the past and what? Okay.
Yeah.
Like I say, I will grant you at any time in your life that is
not what I said.
That is too broad a step. But wait, let me finish.
Yeah.
But see, you go in and you're making this about anti-Semitism by doing this hopscotch about
they're sending skulls to the man's house.
By the way, chat, the reason why I'm choosing to watch the Hassan version is because I don't want any algorithmic connection whatsoever with me and the H3 channel.
People had positive feelings that Jewish people do, and then therefore he is anti-Semitic. And honestly, that type of conflation,
of your background,
I think is so dangerous and so disingenuous. I mean, this is, I don't want to get too passionate about this, but I will tell you something. I have had a guy who went to my bar mitzvah, my sister's bar mitzvah, my kid's bar mitzvah, sat at Passover with me 3 or 4 times, call my father and ask him if I'm anti-Semitic. Now, this is just one, that is just an example, an illustration of conflating when he's clearly talking about Zionism. Was it hyperbole to say any time in life, whatever? The fact of the matter is this conflation is dangerous for Jews.
Yes.
It is a fig leaf and a way of weaponizing anti-Semitism that has enabled Donald Trump to do the shit he's doing, that has enabled the slaughter of thousands upon thousands of children and women and men, for that matter. It is not keeping Israelis safe. And this type of conflation, Ethan, is what I find far more irresponsible, frankly, than the idea that he said positive any time.
He's right.
Look, you do a show Sam, 4 hours a day. He does a show 5 or, as far as I can tell, 15 hours a day. And to focus in on that one tiny clause.
This is not one tiny clip, Sam. You don't know. This is a totality of behavior.
But you want
and by the way, it's easy. And I appreciate that you can hand wave it away and say that it doesn't.
No, I'm not hand waving it away.
Well, you kind of are.
I'm saying this.
You're saying it doesn't. You're saying actually I'm wrong.
You know exactly what.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when there are literally tens of thousands of children being murdered in cold blood with our tax dollars, and you're trying to go, man, somebody says you can't like Israel over that. That's really problematic. You're fucking stupid.
I mean,
In fact, I'm saying this conflation is incredibly dangerous. It is disingenuous.
I think it's dangerous to ignore what's being described as dehumanizing violent language for American Jews.
In Israel,
that have nothing to do with the
that
war.
is a complete mischaracterization of
and that is what's dangerous.
He's not fit to be a dog walker.
He never says the word Jews.
He says a neo.
This dumb fuck doesn't know what that idiom means because he's so stupid. Now, if you didn't know the dog catcher, elected dog catcher idiom, that's fine. I'm not saying you're stupid, okay? I'm saying, however, if you're going to be a political commentator and accuse someone else of being an anti-Semite because they used a common English idiom, you're a fucking idiot.
Listen, how many members of Kufi have positive feelings towards Israel?
Let me see.
How many millions of members of Kufi,
Jews around the world,
Christian organization, have positive feelings for Jews? It is clearly not a function of their Judaism. It is not a function of their Judaism, and so it is not specifically.
Perhaps these people will not finally understand.
It describes most Christian evangelicals too.
It may do them too, but it also describes 73% of Jews.
That is not anti-Semitism. That is about
I don't know. What do you call it when somebody's discriminating against the vast majority of a racial or religious group, Sam?
I'm sorry. You want to look at evangelical Jews?
By the way, Chad, I don't usually juice my Twitter because I don't really like people on Twitter, to be honest. So I don't usually actually juice anything that I post on Twitter. But in case, if you wanna get more people to come hang out with us today on Twitch, go ahead and juice this on Twitter.
Evangelical people.
Okay, but I'm talking about the way you're constructing this.
I think
so
you
ran for something. Yeah. I ran for office in 2014.
Same thing about Christian evangelicals too. It is not anti-Semitism.
I wouldn't be able to have this conversation because Ethan would just be like, "You're a Jew hater. You're a Jew hater. You're a Jew hater." He can't do that to Sam.
Which is what we've done here.
Well, you're the one who gave it to me.
Yeah, well, I don't even want to talk about it. I disagree with you.
But I'm using your example, and in that instance, that is not anti-Semitism.
Well, I disagree.
Conflation. Okay, well, that's our disagreement.
Yeah.
But I think that conflation is incredibly dangerous.
Well, I disagree as well.
Jews,
I think
it's dangerous for this society.
Why would he?
I think, frankly, I think it's dangerous to what I perceive as hand waving what is happening here. I know you said you aren't doing that.
I'm not hand waving.
You're doing the opposite. You're endorsing
decades of thought about this.
So right, sure. But the point is, you're saying that this is not dangerous. How dare you care about this? I think it's dangerous to.
I'm not saying that at all.
I personally, Jewish people have a collective memory of trauma, Sam, and it starts a certain way. And it starts with people. It starts with dehumanizing language, like saying you're not fit to walk a dog. I mean, what are we doing here? It's irresponsible language.
He's not talking about Jews.
He's talking about 73% of Jewish people.
No, you said that.
No, that's a poll that's readily available.
No, you made that connection. He did not. Because we have millions upon millions of members of Kufi. We have millions upon millions in this country of evangelicals who also believe the same thing.
Does your dad have...
You cannot say it's anti-Semitism.
Could you describe
say it's anti-Semitism if you're also including millions upon millions, far more Christians.
If he wants his
Jews.
dad to be...
Oops. See, and this is the problem. This argument isn't in the Hasbro manual. Whoopsie doopsie daisy, not in the Hasbro manual. A prominent Jewish man arguing that most Zionists in America are actually evangelical Christians, not in the Hasbro manual. Whoopsie doopsie daisy. Hey, Destiny, could you not find that argument on the first results of Google search? Whoopsie doopsie daisy. You can't call him an anti-Semite. Uh-oh. He's right about the facts are in America, the vast majority of people that are Zionists are far-right Christian conservatives that are trying to bring about the apocalypse. Is Ethan Klein gonna cry on his stream about how I'm bigoted against the poor Southern Baptists? They're just young Earth creationists. They're just white supremacists.
To local office, and Sam would say no.
Who you mentioned said something to you that he's ever in his life had positive feelings about the state of Israel.
I've had positive feelings of Israel.
Well, does your dad have any positive feelings about it now?
I would assume so.
By the way, notice, look at how much of a fucking worm Ethan is. I want to point this out as a fucking worm Ethan is. This is Israel Defender 101, which is we're going to try to leverage your job. We're going to try to leverage your family and friends. We're going to try to create this like cult-like enforcement where you have to have this opinion or else. Imagine liking Ethan Klein at this point. Pathetic.
In terms of like, I support them, but
I've had
I think
positive feelings. I went to Israel on.
Okay, good. Then you're a neo-Nazi, not fit.
Sorry, I'm getting so passionate, but he's such a fucking worm.
Walk a dog. How do you feel about that?
No, that's you saying that.
That's literally what he said. I'll play it again.
No. Thank you. I think like this will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting if they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel.
Okay, just to translate this for the dumb fucks in the audience, the idiom "you shouldn't even be elected dog catcher" is a political idiom that's existed in the United States for over 100 fucking years, representing the lowest form of political office. What Hassan is saying is, if you are a virulent Zionist, you should not be able to win any elected office in this country. And I agree with him.
The thing he's doing, by the way, and Hassan
listen,
he plays around with the term Zionist, right?
You can say that's a wrong thing to say, but he's not talking about Jews.
Yes.
He's talking about people who have exhibited these positive feelings, and that includes millions upon millions of Christians.
Yes.
More Christians.
Okay, well, listen,
regardless of your background.
Like, for example, I don't know, Donald Trump.
He's not fit to walk dogs, either.
Yes,
I think it's.
He keeps saying dog walk. Is he stupid? Is Ethan Klein stupid?
Same language.
Listen, you don't want to tell
That's
me.
what and then Hassan corrects it right here in the reaction, saying it's a local office position. It's an idiom for the lowest level elected office.
Me that you have never engaged in hyperbole. You and I both are in this business, and we do that.
Yeah, you're right. I just think that
It's you can say
I just
an
think
appropriate
that like
thing to say. It's an unfair thing to say.
I just think like Arabs that support Israel aren't fit to walk a dog.
It is not anti-Semitism.
Okay, well we're at an impasse on this one.
No, the dog walker is a local.
But anyway, another
it's
thing
a fucking colloquialism that Felix Biederman, also Jewish, used.
Zionism. He calls me a Zionist, and again, I know we're arguing here about semantics of what Hassan said, but I don't think that you could accurately characterize me as that, as it's used colloquially. You don't know, right? But he's saying Zionist tendencies. What does that mean? What's a Zionist tendency?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, you're going to talk to him.
To quote Destiny, wow, Mike really knows what he's talking about. He makes me want to learn about electoral politics and stuff. Give me that clip. I actually need to start posting that clip more.
Friday, you can ask him what a Zionist tendency is.
Zionism
I suppose I would guess. And, like I've looked at polls too, where, people have various different.
I didn't create Destiny, but I did cause him to have like a mental crisis breakdown.
Understandings of what not Zionism is. Why is he trying to debate
me on this?
But I think it is
Hassan up so much. He's trying to fight Hassan through
and I don't know what he was thinking specifically.
Watch Ethan back away from our supposed debate on Friday now, because now he didn't get what he wanted out of Sam.
Whatever in the name of Zionism allows this mass slaughter.
Try and hit me in the face.
Sure,
and he's not able to extract He's not able to extract what he wanted out of Sam.
Disagree on that regard.
Yeah, I think we're so. Another thing is like to take it even further. Hassan pretty much like openly supports Hamas.
Let's not talk about Hassan. Let's talk about this.
Sure. I mean, what do you want to ask me?
Well, I mean, if you want to ask me about, I mean,
I think he's gonna back away now that he's not getting what he wanted.
I should really just add the Mike was right to my Twitch, but I think it's too big.
Not here to explore.
Yeah, I have a list of things
but if you want to talk about Hamas, I mean, I think, look.
Well, how do you feel about Hamas?
I mean, I feel that Hamas, people can perceive it as a liberation organization. We call them terrorists in this country. We call the ANC terrorists.
What do you think about them, Sam?
Listen, I think there are parts, I would imagine, of Hamas that have done good for the people in Gaza, and I think they have done bad things. But I sort of feel, I guess, ultimately probably like Ehud Barak when he said that were I Palestinian and I was living in Gaza, that it would be likely that I would join Hamas. I mean, that's what Ehud Barak said on multiple occasions. And I think that is very...
That is the exact same opinion as I do.
An understanding of human nature.
Saying it from a perspective.
That you're not supporting Israelis, by the way, just to point out an inconsistency there.
Because he can't fucking hit him on this.
Well, you're not. You're like, I refuse to understand human nature and their reaction. It's just evil, and I don't know how to explain it.
I didn't use the word evil.
Right. I'm inferring because I asked you if you think they're evil, and you didn't really answer that.
His audience thinks they're on Sam Sedar on this.
I don't know what Gazans felt on October 8th.
Giraffe with acrophobia, thank you. Croc is trying to get the oversight committee chair.
But toward Hamas. But I can tell you that we have there is a long history of terrorist organizations or so-called terrorist organizations like the ANC or the IRA, even the PLO,
now, Sam,
that ultimately become political organizations.
I think the comparison to Hamas to what happened in South Africa is insanely disingenuous. And I personally hate when people do that.
I mean, Mandela didn't think so.
Well, Mandela did think so. He explicitly stated that he avoided committing violence on the citizenry because it would make reunification impossible.
Twice they asked Nelson Mandela, if you disavow violence, we will let you go free.
In the totality of their campaign,
you are wrong.
I think under 200 civilians died. And the people who did...
By the way, it's because the United States stopped supporting South Africa, and South Africa wasn't doing a... By the way, South African apartheid... What's going on in Gaza is worse than anything that happened in South African apartheid.
Kill civilians were almost all...
We are reacting to a reaction? Absolutely. I don't want to give Ethan Klein even one view.
Held accountable for what they did. That's a difference.
Why is he lying about this?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that
a significant difference.
He stayed in prison. His prison sentence was
a significant difference. I mean, I imagine many of those people who committed atrocities on October 7th are dead now. And so
what does that have to do with anything?
Well,
that's called you got justice. You killed the guys who were responsible for October 7th, and now you're just killing kids. I mean, what is this?
That's accountability.
But I mean, being held accountable by the party that they're presumably doing the violence on behalf. Like,
but you're saying the entire ANC was held accountable?
No, I was saying Nelson Mandela's party, if someone killed a civilian, they would hold them accountable. They would charge them. They would disavow their actions.
Choose peace rather than confrontation, except in cases where we cannot proceed, where we cannot move forward. Then, if the only alternative is violence, we will use violence.
His comments won him applause from leader Yasser Arafat and the Assembly. Many Palestinians worship Mandela. Posters bearing his image cover walls throughout Gaza.
You're a liar. You're a scumbag. And Nelson Mandela would have hated your ass.
That's not true.
The ANC did.
Yes.
Well, the IRA was bombing places in...
By the way, has Sam Sedar never listened to anything these fuckers say? This is the worst part about these debates. They make the assertions of fact and they rely on your good faith to be like, well, they wouldn't just blatantly lie or make shit up. I would never do that. This is the main way they get an advantage in these stupid fucking debates.
In England and throughout Ireland, I mean, we have even the Irgun or the Stern gang when they killed, over 100
I would not compare Irgun to the IRA, by the way.
In 1948. I mean, the history is full of examplles of organizations that commit terrorist acts. Now, I will tell you,
people look at South Africa.
I do not condone the killing of civilians, which is why obviously I'm upset about what Israel is doing.
Sure. The part that I don't like about people say, like, I feel like people sweep for Hamas by saying, like, what do you expect?
MK,
right?
paramilitary wing of the ANC bombing campaign that killed 19 people.
South Africa as an example, but what South Africa shows is that you don't need to commit a violent war against civilians to liberate yourself.
They were violent.
Well, I mean, listen, we had.
Oh my God.
Not only were they violent, there was wars going on in Angola. There's war. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course, Ethan Klein doesn't know anything about history.
For a year, we had the Great March of Return, where Sinwar himself was involved in that. There was Palestinians marching on a regular basis over the course of the year. I don't know how many it was, 50 or whatever. That were innocent people who went there, and snipers are shooting down unarmed civilians. And so, time and time again, and over the course of the 20 years that I've been professionally, covering
to prison.
My attitude towards Israel's willingness to have peace has changed, and my understanding of it has changed. And I can only imagine how more intense that feeling is to be living in a place that is, functionally like, the Warsaw Ghetto, insofar as like you don't have access to resources, you have 50% unemployment, the apartheid that is taking place in terms of the West Bank. I mean,
I agree with those characterizations, by the way, Sam. Just to say,
but I can't imagine that my response wouldn't be to pick up a weapon.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
It's not really working out.
Well, because none of it's working out, is it?
No, not much at all. Not really much at all. It's called
the greatest attack on Israelis in 75 years. The notion of Zionism and the way that Israel is organized as a society is not protecting Jews.
Well,
it's not protecting Israelis. It's not protecting Jews worldwide. It is, there may have been a time where Zionism had and there were certainly proponents of Zionism in the early 20th century, in the late, perhaps late 19th century, where there was a notion of a multi-ethnic democracy that fell by the wayside. Folks like Hannah Arendt and Einstein, left the Zionist Congress, and what it has evolved into is, I think, a nightmare for everyone involved. And so, I don't know how I would react in that type of immiseration, frankly.
Well, can I ask you?
But again, Ehud Barak said that he would pick up a weapon were he one of them. And
that's fine.
He's far closer to the conflict than I am.
I'm not saying I don't understand why people pick up weapons. Right? So let me ask you this. What do you think about October 7th attack?
What do I think about it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was horrific.
Mm-hmm. And this was like a military action by Hamas to what end?
I mean, I suspect. I mean, I don't know what the strategy was. I mean, they attacked 2 military bases. I don't know if they were aware.
He's gonna hit the rape stuff now, probably.
That the dance.
The Nova rave.
Yeah, I don't know if they knew that rave was happening. I suspect it was to derail the Abraham Accords, which were going to leave the Palestinians out of the equation, where an authoritarian
you leave out that they attacked kibbutz.
Westerners love to whitewash revolutions so they can give the illusion that you can get all you want by being peaceful, perfect victim. The British and French did this a lot to their history. The French did similar whitewashing to my country, to the world, but in my country, it's understood we got independence by our armed resistance. I mean, the United States of America had to do armed resistance in our own country.
Seem, by the way.
No, yes, of course they did. But I'm saying that they, I don't know what the strategy was on their part.
So what do you think, would you expect the response of Israel would be to that?
I had no doubt on that day that Israel was going to respond.
Go insane. Yeah, right. It was going to be horrific. We all knew.
Yes, but I think I think the lack of proportionality was just beyond, frankly, and I was aware that this was going to be a horror show, but I don't think I had the level of awareness of what they would do to go in and literally level it, destroy. What is it? 80–90% of the structures in Palestine, bomb hospitals
as well.
That they would use.
Well, Hamas did know that because that's why they attacked.
Food as a weapon.
I'm more interested in the justification for what they're doing.
Probably took hostages with the idea that they would be able to negotiate.
I understand why they took hostages. I don't understand why they took children and elderly.
I believe that they probably. I mean, this is all conjecture on my part. That they would be able to trade them as a way to inhibit Israel's doing what they're doing, and I don't know if they could have even imagined that. I'm not going I'm not going to endorse Hamas's strategy here.
Well, I'm just trying to flesh it out here because this is. What I'm getting to is Hamas. I think they knew that this was the reaction that would happen.
I can't imagine that they
it's an act of desperation
assumed that this
born out of
there would be this level
cruelty.
Of destruction.
I mean, that's why they hate Israel. I don't think they underestimate how violent Israel.
So this is such abuser fucking mentality. By the way, Ethan Klein, this is incredibly suspect about how you think. Ethan Klein's. He's basically saying, listen, you refuse to cook dinner for me. You know that if you don't cook dinner, that I'm going to beat you. So it's not my fault that I'm beating you because you didn't act the way that I told you to act or the way that I expect. So, Hamas fought against the soldiers that were doing a blockade. That's the primary target that Hamas attacked. Like, you guys know that, right? Like, Hamas attacked military bases and defeated them in combat. You guys know that, right? Like, that's what happened on October 7th, is the Israeli military was surprised by Hamas's commando action, and it defeated all the border forts were defeated. All the border bases were defeated. When the Israeli soldiers had to face combatants one-on-one and they weren't suppressing civilians, they lost. Think about that.
You know what I mean? That's why they attacked.
I certainly underestimated that they would go this far.
I didn't think they'd go this far, but
bomb hospitals.
Okay, so what the fuck are you defending Israel and the Zionist project in any capacity, Ethan?
Have rules of engagement
Hamas
like this.
Thought that Israel would have a semblance of humanity for its own hostages. They were wrong. How was that anybody else's fault other than Israel?
Criticism for their strategy here.
I think that's an understatement.
Ethan is blaming the genocide of Palestinians on Hamas once again.
Well, they're a terrorist organization
way to try and defend Israel.
Antagonized the IDF to come mass slaughter their civilians.
I think that if they overestimated whether Israel cared about the hostages, without a doubt. I mean, there's.
I'm really disappointed.
I don't know that there would be anybody who would make a case that this
oh my God, his entire community is like full-blown Zionist.
Have Israel respond in this way? That's absurd.
Oh my God. The same is true of, like, I guess Israelis feel the same way. Like, it was totally unprecedented.
No shot. They're literally fucking going. They're telling Sam.
Maybe they didn't think that their mission would be as successful as it was on the other hand.
I have no doubt that they did not think that they would that they would have been able to overrun that. I mean, I think we were told that the technology
is so much worse than I thought it was going to be.
Fence, et cetera, was perfect and something we should emulate in this country. I mean, Trump was all talking about that. So I have no doubt that Hamas overestimated
the IDF. Yeah, I got you.
What they would be able to,
oh my God, is bad.
What kind of destruction they would wreak,
bad, bro.
And they underestimated the violence that Israel would perpetate on Gaza. I don't know that anyone could have imagined that Israel would
someone can be to explain the situation. And these guys are just going crazy. They're treating him like they treat me.
It's because they're Destiny fans, dude. Like, it's not. It is Hasbara, literal Israeli agents. It is Destiny fans. Like, and that's it. Like, if you disagree with them, you are a bad person, because that's what Destiny has declared is okay to do, which is these. I tweeted about this yesterday, and I'm gonna read the tweet because I think I put it pretty simple, or maybe I tweeted it earlier. I don't know. Who fucking knows? But basically, this is what I said. Hassan tweeted, a lot of people fail to realize that it no longer matters if one side has more knowledge or is correct. We are officially in a parasocial haze where stands are consuming politics from the narrow focus of drama. They don't care about the issues, only how it makes their favorite content creator feel. Ethan Klein debating Sam Sedar is one of the best examples of Dunning-Kruger you will ever see. I wouldn't dare debate someone as well-informed as Sedar, and I'm roughly 1,000,000 times more clued up than Ethan. These people, the people that are Destiny fans, they don't know they don't care about the facts. It's all this like content mill and drama. It's like watching to them trash TV and having somebody on the trash TV show that you're a fan of. They don't care what's like happening. It's all shapes and colors. And I said, this has been the primary effect of the debate bro sphere in political discussion. Parasocial fans of creators enter political discussions as stands supporting their favorite creator. He's a dumbass. Whether or not their positions have any coherence is entirely based on the creator to talk about our debates ever. Because if you go back and look at them,
Hassan sucks at talking, so he dismisses debating because he knows he cannot compete, and he's a lazy person and cannot research his positions and is thus wrong a lot.
Now, chat. All right, moving on. I just felt like that was necessary to just rip that little talking point a little bit more. It's very fun.
And bombing churches and bombing hospitals and blowing up universities.
Destiny didn't learn that. It's something sociopaths was born with. I mean, I don't know whether he learned it or whether he's a sociopath, but that's what he does.
Universities and destroying the infrastructure. Sam is hard to listen to. I mean, it's almost beyond belief.
So one thing that when I was talking to Hassan, and I'm just going to talk about his point. This is about him personally. When I asked him, because this is obviously the $1 million question, right? By the way, just there's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza.
You think that's a good point?
There's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza?
Oh no,
There have been dedicated safe zones, including UN schools, third-party hospital networks. Israel bombs them. And you supported it by saying, you said earlier that Hamas uses hospitals as command posts with no evidence. Meanwhile, Israel does use schools as command posts. Israel does use cemeteries as command posts. Israel does put command posts in mosques. Those are the war crimes that Israel commits, and then it projects that onto Hamas. They accuse Hamas of using human shields, no evidence. But there is widespread evidence of Israel using Palestinian civilians as human shields. They accuse Hamas of doing mass rapes. No evidence that there were mass rapes on October 7th. There's video evidence of mass sexual assault and rape happening at Israeli prisons. Every accusation is a confession. But Ethan Klein doesn't talk about any of those Israeli crimes because he's pro-Israel.
Doing hospital points. Sam's gonna
I just
cook
think
them.
That's interesting. It's pretty fucked up.
What would a 3,000-pound bomb do to a bomb shelter?
Do I think it's fucked up?
Do you think Israel would stop themselves from blowing up a bomb shelter? They blow up hospitals!
Well, I mean,
do you think anything would be standing?
IOF literally used the Turkish Friendship Hospital as a base for more than 2 months, and when they left, they blew it up. Yes, I know. Because they're doing genocide. But thank you for that example.
Anymore?
Well, bomb shelters are underground. I mean, they would definitely be a lot safer.
Dude, they have 2,000. They have bunker busters. They've used bunker busters on fucking refugee camps. They've used bunker busters on hospitals. Why the fuck would they stop themselves from using it on a fucking...
And the difference between me and Ethan Klein and Destiny is I show you evidence from sources that are reliable and not biased in my favor. Here's Haaretz.
Bomb shelter.
The first one that they went into, they built it when they were occupying Gaza.
Are you and right? That's true of that one. But I mean, they have a vast tunnel network, obviously, as everybody knows. But I don't care. I don't want to get into the weeds on this. The $1 million question is like, what can we do? Now, it's obviously insanely difficult to say.
I think we can stop aid immediately. I mean, obviously, it's not going to happen under Trump.
I'm in favor of that, by the way.
Don't fucking move on. Don't move on. Oh, my God.
Okay. I mean, good.
I mean, I think
we should call for all aid to be ceased. And I think we should stop protecting them in the UN.
What should have Israel done on October 8th, I guess? Like, what would have been an appropriate response for their government?
Not kill Israeli citizens within the Gaza envelope. In a hope that Hamas could not hold them kidnapped.
On October 8th, I mean, I think that there is...
Concede to the positions of Hamas.
They're hitting strategic sites to attempt to take out leadership. They should have... But let's talk,
well, the leadership was underground.
Yeah, to look at that, that moment in history,
genocide,
like maybe it was...
I disagree, because they had to do something.
Maybe in that moment,
why are there?
They had to go in and bomb or whatever they do. I think that any action that they would have taken at that point, frankly, was a function of literally decades of oppressing people and attempting to bring this to an eventuality.
Right.
I mean, this was.
I can't believe.
And so, what should they have done?
I can't believe his audience legitimately and Ethan thought that, like Sam would agree with.
Okay, I think what they should have done is begun empowering
anyone who's knowledgeable on this issue that isn't fucking brain broken.
This is my favorite answer, Sam.
100% going to have these exact same opinions.
They should disband their government and lift the borders in response to the worst terrorist attack that's ever happened.
I think, honestly.
By the way, Israel denies Palestine a state and steals their territory with millions of people constructing illegal settlements whose property is sold in the United States illegally. Ethan Klein, you are a liar.
Policies have failed. But I don't think
you actually don't believe that that's a real thing, though. I'm interested in having like a real conversation. You can't like live in a fairy tale land where, in response to the worst military or terrorist attack of all time,
why were you best friends with someone so stupid and awful? I wasn't. I was never friends with Ethan Klein. I never liked Ethan Klein.
Israel, who's already, as you state, like genocidal and racist and all these terrible things, is going to lift their borders and disband their government.
Well, wait a second. You're asking me what they should have done, and that's different.
No, in a realistic way, not in a fairy tale, Sam.
Well, listen, there is no realistic thing. Their agenda has been, it has been quite clear. Their agenda has been, since Ariel Sharon walked on the Temple Mount.
All of us have friends of friends that we don't particularly like, but we don't need to fight, because if I see a friend of a friend and I don't like them, but it seems like they're becoming a better person because of another friend, you know what? I give them time. Maybe I'll learn to change my mind. So I don't shit on them. I don't shit talk them, because at least they're trying, right? But it doesn't mean I fuck with them.
And tried to scuttle peace talks. The agenda since the assassination of Rabin by arch Zionists in Israel, the agenda has been to bring about this moment. There is no doubt about it. The annihilation of the Palestinian people has been an agenda.
That seems like an interesting channel, Myro. Thank you.
In Israel for far too long. So from the perspective, it's anything I say is fantastical relative to what they would actually do.
Happy May Day, everybody.
There's nothing they could have done that because of the situation, everything Anything they would have done would have been.
Poor Israel, man.
There was no plan that on this day they were going to do this.
I feel so bad for Israel for 76 years of apartheid. They just had no other option but to do genocide. That is the logical conclusion of Ethan's argument, by the way. That is how crazy this is.
The agenda.
What, in terms of like attacking Gaza or inciting an attack?
I would imagine both, frankly. But to find a way to eliminate the Palestinians, this has been the agenda of at one time what I think was a smaller segment of the Israeli body politic, and I think has increasingly become an even larger portion of the Israeli politic. So, I mean, anything I say in terms of should is fantastical. Anything.
So, yeah, okay. I mean, so this is like I understand where you're coming from, right? Like,
there was an opportunity for a ceasefire that was called in November, in December. They could have held a ceasefire at any point, and the amount of killing would have been far less. They could have done that. They could have ended it after a week.
I mean, Hamas could have ended the war anytime too.
How could have Hamas ended the war?
By releasing the hostages?
No, listen. Israel has said time and time again that release of the hostages is not going to end their assault on Gaza. They have said this over
I don't believe
and
that's
over and over.
I haven't seen those statements. I've seen the opposite. I believe that if
Okay, let's back that up. What was he saying?
How could have Hamas ended the war?
By releasing the hostages?
Okay, I just typed in Google, Israel won't end war for deal to free all hostages. Okay, I'm gonna show you the raw Google responses. Okay, this is Ethan Klein. We will not end the war of revival before we destroy the Hamas at Gaza, return all our hostages, and ensure that Gaza no longer poses a threat. Okay. Israel won't accept 5-year truce. Won't surrender to Hamas. They're claiming it's surrendering to Hamas if they end the war and get all the hostages back. Israel won't end war on Gaza for the return of all hostages. Top Israeli official tells families of captives that only certain categories could possibly be freed in the near future. A senior Israeli official said on Thursday, this was May of last year, that the condition that all captives taken by Hamas on October 7th would be released would not be enough for the current government to end its onslaught on Gaza.
No, listen, Israel has said time and time again that release of the hostages is not going to end their assault on Gaza. They have said this over
I don't believe
and
that's
over and over.
I haven't seen those statements. I've seen the opposite. I believe that
you really haven't seen those statements?
No, I haven't. I'll review them. I mean, it depends when it depends when they were made too, right?
Like, is it hostage family protests in Israel, Ethan, is because the Netanyahu government doesn't want to release the hostages because they want to keep using the hostages as a reason to keep bombing Gaza because they want to ethnically cleanse the Gaza population. They want to ethnically cleanse the fucking Gaza Strip. You are so stupid.
Coming into Gaza.
Why are you so stupid? You don't understand anything.
That's not true.
Israel's actions.
That didn't happen either.
It's being inevitable.
Oh my God.
Like, when do you think they should have ended it? When do you think they should have ended it?
So who have ended what?
You've asked me the question, what should have Israel have done? You tell me what they should have done. Do you think what they've done is right?
Well, I've clearly stated no, Sam.
Okay, so tell me what they should have done.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, hindsight is a beautiful thing. But in my opinion, like you said, I think some more specific strikes, I think more moving slowly, because as you kind of
just a slower
pointed out but didn't really acknowledge.
When do you think they should have ended?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the leadership is obviously underground. So it's going to be a long mission of trying to get them. It's going to be a difficult mission. But I think militarily, they probably have some obligation to their citizenry, at the very least, to like take out but we're ignoring the fact that missiles are being shot into Israel nonstop. And I know you're going to say, Iron Dome stops most of them, which is true. But at the same time, I mean, a country needs to respond to that. They can't just allow missiles to be shot in.
Tell me the non-fantastical version of what they should have done. Should it have been 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How many members of Hamas should they have killed before they leave? Because we know that Blinken said on his way out that virtually every Hamas member of Hamas that they've killed has probably been replaced by someone who's lost a family member or an entire family or whatnot. So you tell me, Ethan, if you're the one with the sensical perspective on this, and mine is fantastical, what should they have done that would have been appropriate in your mind?
Yeah. So besides like special operations and stuff, I think it would have been a good idea to, I think there's a space where they could like try to find peace partners in Gaza before just destroying the whole thing. Like obviously they approached it.
So in other words, his point is that Palestinians need to surrender completely to Israel. But Israel is not going to do the thing where they like invade and occupy the territory and build an infrastructure to replace the government that they are invading, which is what you're supposed to do under international law and what the United States did and the Soviet Union did when they invaded Germany. Like when the United States and the Soviet Union invaded Germany and occupied Japan, we built a new civilian government. And we started providing them the resources, and we set up markets. We provided them food aid. We started the rebuilding process. We tried, Israel is not doing anything because they're trying to make it unlivable so the population is displaced so they can steal all the land, right?
Completely wrong, right? But there are ways, I think, that could have happened that are realistic, like trying to forge some kind of
the principal negotiator who had never actually held a fucking weapon. They killed him at Tehran. This is ridiculous.
They were marching in the Great March of Return week after week after week.
Sam, was there Hamas activity at the Great March?
Sinwar was marching. Sinwar was marching with them.
Were people attacking the border wall?
During the Great March of Return, the first dozens of these things before the snipers, no, they weren't. So there were the people for peace.
Hamas activity at the Great March.
There was Hamas activity. They were attacking the fence.
There was Hamas activity. Therefore, we can gun down civilians.
You're telling me that in the first dozen of these marches, there were people attacking the fence?
Defending,
correct.
Sniping like paramedics at the Great March of Return, for the record. That's what he is.
Yeah.
De facto
but I mean,
defending.
again,
sniper rifles.
I think that there's a way for Israel to try. I think they can obviously pursue peace. The way that they're doing it is impossible, right? Like, it's fucked up. It's insane. It's genocidal. It's horrific.
They're not pursuing peace.
I'm not saying. I'm saying the opposite, Sam.
I don't think Israel is.
Well, you asked me what should they have done. I mean, obviously, yes. They're not pursuing peace. I agree with you. Like, quite the opposite. That's not what they're doing. But I'm saying there could have been a path, although it's not. I think, unfortunately, I think their response was inevitable.
And it's crazy how the crew is just utterly silent. I guess that's a rule. They don't get to talk. This is just just Sam on Ethan, huh? They don't say anything, huh?
Well, based on everything that happened.
You think it was inevitable that they would kill these many people and they would use food supplies as a weapon, that they would have leveled hospitals and universities and 80-90% of the homes? I mean, how
I don't know to what extent, but like
this is how you know it's a genocide, chat, because Israel could do filtration, which is civilians filter through the front line, they get investigated, and if they're cleared, they go to a prepared civilian camp where food and supplies can be provided, maybe run by the International Red Cross. And you could have you could have all sorts of stuff where people are settled as refugees in Israeli territory on the border areas that are beyond the front lines, right? Israel, that's what normal countries do. That's what the United States did when it invaded Germany. It didn't force German civilians back from the front lines. It allowed German civilians to pass through the lines.
No, I'm just saying inevitability. I wonder.
Ethan is right here.
What?
I mean, like, this is crazy. Like, this is literally crazy because Nazis Germans defended the oppression of Jews by saying Jews are leading a boycott against Germany internationally. Jews are trying to get countries to fight Nazi Germany, and they justified that to do oppression on the Jews they controlled in occupied territories and in their allies. They literally said, see, the Jews are fighting back. That gives us that means that they're internal enemies. which means they're all under suspicion now. That's literally what the Nazis said to justify the Holocaust.
You must think of an Israeli body politic
all the history and
where this
of
level
of
atrocity is inevitable.
Well, you described your and Hamas's understanding of the IDF. I wouldn't say that. I can't say to what extent, but you agree that a huge response was inevitable.
I listen. I believe a response that was inevitable by Israel, and that is because I have a much more theoretically jaded view
in this chat.
of that country and their agenda, I think, than you. But like to expect that what they've done is inevitable.
To what? Well, Sam,
I just wonder, like, what it is that you think is in that body politic. Like, listen, like, I don't think it's inevitable, just to use an example in this country. I don't think that it's inevitable that we are going to be deporting and disappearing, immigrants in this country. I think it's possible, but my perspective on America is still too optimistic to think that's inevitable.
Yeah, of course there's crazy takes in here. Like you, chum guzzler. You came in here. It's not inevitable.
And I think, like,
all you need to do is follow for 10 minutes. His chat is all fucking paid members and subscribers. Don't you think that there's a major difference there? I don't safeguard myself from the opinions of people like you, cum guzzler 22. Okay?
Very few. And
yeah, no shit.
Certainly I was exposing them more than the American population writ large.
Edith's chat is members only.
To perceive what we did in Iraq as inevitable.
It's a different situation. That's completely, that was completely unpredictable. But we kind of touched on it. Where Hamas, and again, to what end this even matters is it doesn't ultimately. But Hamas knew that they were going to bomb the fuck out of Gaza.
Listen, I would imagine Hamas thought there was going to be a response, but they wouldn't have taken hostages if they thought that they couldn't use those hostages
as a way
they thought they could.
I don't deny that.
Of deterring Israel from entering, and that was a miscalculation on their part. They presumed that Israel was more interested in those hostages, I think, than they had assumed.
Well, and that's part of what a lot of the civil unrest in Israel is about, is that a lot of people do care about the hostages and think that the government needs to stop the war and focus on getting the hostages back and not killing innocent civilians. So that
I wonder about that last
Sam
part.
Sedar, what a fucking nightmare with Ethan saying
which part?
The part about the killing of innocent civilians. I think that
I said that's what they're doing.
No. I'm saying I wonder if the Israeli body politic.
Oh, you think the Israelis want civilians to die?
I think the Israelis. Obviously not all Israelis.
There's definitely
but
a lot
I think that
there are definitely a lot of Israelis that do want the Israeli civilians to die, and certainly the Gazan civilians to die as well.
To maintain this government.
Yes.
Believe
that's what the polls say. Ethan loves his polls when he's talking about Zionism.
That their lives have no value. That they are all future enemies, that they that they all represent a threat to
Sam?
Israel. And I think that's...
Oh, yes, Sam, speak for everyone.
I think that's...
They're so mad at Sam Sedar. They literally...
A twisted perspective.
Before this conversation took place, I need you to understand, their subreddit was talking about how Ethan should Sam...
Yeah, because the plan, as I said before, chat, the plan was a destiny plan. The plan was to create a wedge between Hassan and Sam Sedar, get Sam Sedar to condemn some statements that Frogan, I, or Hassan made, and use that to drive a wedge, saying, see, even pro-Palestinian Jews aren't good enough. See how anti-Semitic they are? That was the plan.
Sedar because they thought that Ethan and Sam Sedar would be in
tens
agreement
of
with one another,
in a
and now
country
they're
that's
fucking calling him a
small.
self-hating Jew
So
and
I think characterizing
Ethan canceled his stream. Wait, what? Now they'll brigade and harass the MR and then blame it on this community, Hassan's community. That's not gonna work. See, brigading communities that actually have politics doesn't work. The only way their brigades work is when they go into non-political communities.
Public as wanting to kill civilians is a little sick, personally. you know.
I feel Ethan is far less extremist.
I mean, I'm basing it on conversations with
you feel that way because he was trying to present himself in this conversation as someone who is actually pro-Palestinian in an effort to use that agreement with Sam against.
The best part of this debate is that you can almost see Destiny's minions on a private call together laughing at Ethan every time he butchers whether they're talking. No way. They're so obsessed with hating Hassan, they were probably malding
me on Friday, and even then it unfolded pretty quickly when he got a little bit of pushback, not realizing that Sam has Sam has opinions almost identical to mine on this issue, because that's what every fucking well-read person on this matter would think if they have a fucking humanity.
Certainly,
I already referenced you and said it's derailing.
Hostages, and again, not all Israelis, but you know, look,
there's no way they're going to derail. There's no way they're going to derail. What's going to happen is Ethan is going to start screaming and yelling, calling him an anti-Semite. And then Hassan's not going to be able to get a word in edgewise. And then at some point, when Ethan feels like he's tired of debating, he's going to try to bring on some banned streamer.
I can make analogous assessments of the United States at various times about things that reflect poorly on our national body politic as well. But, you know, the proof is in the pudding.
Can I tell you something? 300,000 protesters in Tel Aviv, 200,000 in the rest of the country. That's 500,000 people out in the street protesting the government of a country that has like 6 million or 5 million in the.
Are you talking about the protests about the judiciary?
I'm talking about the.
That's what he's talking about. Those weren't
to release the hostages.
No, the hostage protests weren't that
hostages.
Big. Yeah,
but even I don't think the hostage protests were that big. But it doesn't matter. It was pretty large. But those people literally still turned around and, according to polls, said they want the violence to continue in Gaza. They just want to stop it for now.
Or they were calling for a release of the hostages.
Well, what do you? What's the point of telling Hamas to release the hostages? Yeah, of course it's a ceasefire, Sam.
Well, but Israel has, and I know. I'll look this up.
Deal with this. 500,000 Israel.
Wait. Let's look this up and see how many times the Israeli government has said return of the hostages will not end.
Sam, I'm responding to you saying the majority of Israelis want civilians to die. 500,000 people came to the street for a ceasefire of a country of 5 million, Sam. That's 10%.
Israel just broke the latest ceasefire. Okay, where is the political response from the Israeli people? I mean, the idea
is this Israelis that or Israeli
Gazans
Jews?
Can be held responsible for an election that happened 18 years ago.
Sam, you said the majority of Israelis want civilians to die.
I think the majority of Israelis do not have a problem with what's going on in Gaza. That is my opinion.
I think that unfortunately might be true to the extent that they've gotten they've gotten much more radical. Unfortunately, tragically, everybody's been a lot more radicalized since October 7th. And that's tragic. I agree. I think people in Israel are jaded and they're cynical and they don't care, like you said, and I think it's tragic.
Yes. Well, that's what my contention was. I mean, I'm looking at something from May.
I wouldn't say most of them want to kill civilians, though.
Well, I think that they don't.
And I wouldn't say that there isn't a sizable portion of of Israeli citizenry that want a ceasefire. When 500,000 people, Sam,
dude, Ethan should talk to an Israeli anti-Zionist. It will probably melt him. Okay. Ethan should talk to
research,
like a Messervolt guy or Dr. Ofer Kasif. He will literally melt on the spot.
34%.
He should ask an Israeli anti-Zionist, an Israeli Jew who's an anti-Zionist, what their take is on Israeli society, because they say some fucking way worse shit about their own country.
But you know, that's all the most recent.
Or maybe he should talk to a therapist. Honestly, I don't know why he's doing all this.
Because
40% last year said that Israelis should govern the Gaza Strip.
I know that people.
I don't know what's left now.
Yeah, I agree. It's tragic what's happened, because I agree with you that they've become jaded and they've become very comfortable with the idea of violence happening there in general, right? And I think it sucks. I think it sucks is an understatement. I think it's tragic, and like I don't know what truthfully, the situation is so fucked up that, and like,
yeah, it's just really
it
fucked
just
up.
feels hopeless sometimes. But
it certainly does. But in the meantime, in this country, and we may not have the opportunity for a while, but we should cease all aid to Israel.
Yeah, we showed that
we
already.
should stop protecting them in the UN. We should stop trying to pressure the ICJ and the ICC.
We should stop giving them military aid, withdraw our THAAD systems. Stop bombing
incidentally,
Yemen.
I agree with all those things too. I think
doctrine of surrender, too stupid to actually debate any substantive point. See, the thing is, I agree with all the pro-Palestinian people on all the things they argue for, but I still am trying to get them all banned for anti-Semitism. How's that work? You agree with us then? Then stop talking about us, you dumb fuck.
That's the most we can do as a country to try to stop the war.
You disagree
and
with
it's
me
something
on, Ethan?
that we should be doing.
There are some significant disagreements, even that you brought up.
I think Kamala Harris would have been a lot more likely to do something on that front. Certain.
We won't know.
We can't know, and that's the great thing.
Well, listen, I appreciate the time. I gotta go because I'm supposed to have dinner for my child. But,
well, I'll say this. This was way more combative than I expected. Ultimately, though, I don't think that we... what do we disagree on? I mean, I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe I see too much good in the Israeli population. I mean, I don't know what's the ultimately the disagreements
He's trying to farm it, see?
Well, I mean, look, I'm not... it's largely, in my mind, impossible to really fully assess. I mean, yes, there was a protest last year, 500,000 people who wanted the hostages back. And,
I thought you would agree on everything.
Well, they wanted the hostages back. I don't know.
It's not a magic wand. It's a ceasefire.
Yeah, and they got a ceasefire. And
yeah,
then
Hamas has said, we will release all the hostages.
The Israeli government broke it, and they.
Well, so hold on. Our disagreements is that I'm too optimistic about the Israeli citizenry.
No. I'm not here to adjudicate what.
I'm just trying to summarize our conversation. That's all.
No,
well,
he's just trying to get a clip.
You summarize for you. I'll summarize for me. I think that, it is what it is. And I think I don't. Remember this conversation. We can put into AI and have it summarize it. But I'll
do that for you, and I'll let you know what it says.
All right,
we'll leave it to the robots.
Okay.
Sam, I do appreciate you calling in. I do value your input on all this, and I appreciate the conversation. I think it's good to have conversations like this, like open and honest, even if they're combative. And I think ultimately on the larger points we agree. But we managed to find things to fight about anyway. And that's what two Jews do, isn't it, Sam?
That happens. That's my understanding. Appreciate it. All right. Take it easy, man.
Have a great time with your children at dinner there. Enjoy.
Ooh. I mean, I'll have the convo now if he wants to, by the way. I'll talk to Ethan right now if he wants to. Oh, he said...
But okay.
He said that was way different than what I thought it was going to be.
Absolute and total Sam Sedar victory. He didn't fall for any of Ethan Klein's ridiculous bullshit. Did I leave any of Ethan's talking points unrefuted? I wanted to make sure that we had firm refutations of every substantive point Ethan tried to make. Was there any substantive point that I missed that you guys think that you would like me to go back over and say, like, oh, Mike, you didn't do that? I talked about Mandela. I talked about the doctrine of surrender. I talked about the hostage releases. Like, there wasn't very many. I talked about the hospital shit. Is there really anything else he said that was substantive? The bomb shelter thing? Yeah, I talked about the bomb shelter thing.